Hi, this is An Imagination with the Ethical Asshole, and I am your host, the Salty Bitch. So last night, I started to reverse engineer friendship. Oh, yay. And when I started to pull apart friendship, you get to see, oh, that's friendship. And then you get to see what other things are not. And when I started to reverse engineer friendship, I put a lot of pieces together. That's a really good way of saying that. I put a lot of pieces together. This particular episode is M for mature. It contains sensitive topics. I will not be censoring myself. Please use viewer discretion. I was raised in a pedophile community, and I was also prepped for trafficking. I've been inside the trafficking community. And in 2021, I met somebody and fell in love with him. And unbeknownst to him, he introduced me to another community. This other community is one that I dove real deep into. It consisted of 4 circles, approximately 200 people per circle. On the outside, it looked like one of the largest, most fun hippie party where everyone loves each other that you could possibly imagine. Inside, it was the operations, and it hid the operations of a rape ring. Everyone was playing a part. Whether or not they knew about it, everyone played a part. There were the victims, the women who were brought in. There were the recruiters. Most recruiters were the ignorant partygoers thinking, hey, I have this party, let's go, not knowing that they were luring victims into the party circle. There were the rapists, and there were one head rapist, and then he had a team of other men that he trained in his bar how to rape women using roofies. And he has an entire bar that is designed to accommodate his training for these men. It's made to look like a loving, ethical family on the outside. And the pro-women consent, pro-consent is their cover-up, So everyone assumes that they are highly ethical, even though they're walking around sexually assaulting and going after drug and or alcohol-induced women at what looks like a really friendly party until you're there. And suddenly you've got these men in a very lovey, comfortable, cozy area doing whatever the hell they want. When you say something, the de-escalators step in. The de-escalators, for the most part, are ignorant. They're just wanting to keep the peace and have a good time. So they de-escalate the problem for the rapists, not realizing that they are the problem. Meanwhile, there are scouts, people who are paid in drugs and favors if they bring in or position people in the right place. This is how I was lured into the position. They all work together, either knowing or unknowing, and it is all absolutely this manifestation of, it's a cesspool. Drugs, addiction, alcohol, and it's that hippie, woke community that really makes it look like everyone loves each other and is having a good time, when in fact it is contaminated very heavily with a rape training circle where women are brought in to be raped. In that community, 10 out of 10 women are raped. When I first found this community, had a plethora of mental illnesses that I was in the process of taking care of. I was almost done with my work, as in putting myself back together again, when my person, unbeknownst to himself, because he was completely unaware of this, brought me into the community. Bringing me into the community in the condition I was in was literally throwing oil right into the frying pan. And that's exactly what happened. When he brought me into the community, he had no idea that they were what they were. And me coming from a pedophile community and a trafficking community, walked right into a rape ring, and I knew exactly intuitively what I was walking into. The words are not there for it. And the biggest problem that these communities have is they look like A on the outside, and that's what Hollywood portrays. It's wrong. I really need to watch. There's a movie that just came out on human trafficking, and I need to watch it. And I'll tell you if that movie depicts it properly or not. Because there's what it looks like on the inside, and then there's what it looks like on the outside. More specifically, there's what it looks like to outsiders. And this is the problem. I also grew up in the BDSM community. I am a mistress of 32 years. And there is what it looks like to the insider, and there is what it looks like to the outsider. And the problem is you've got a bunch of outsiders making movies and documentaries as an outsider. I really need to get into the movie industry and show you what it's really like, because I was an insider on the inside who can do a film to show you what it really looks like on the inside. I was watching Umbrella Academy, first season, and there is this section at the very end of the first season where they're at a rave, and my skin crawled. The rave is exactly what it looks like on the outside. It was a giant party, except no one was a stranger. Everyone knew each other. Everyone was a best friend. But then there was what was going on underneath the rave. And it's the psychedelic, dreamlike state. And while everything is going through you in a dreamlike state, in the back of your mind, you're thinking, I didn't consent to this. I didn't agree to this. I don't even know who this person is. And you're so doped up on whatever they gave you that you can't even think. And if you try and object, the immediate de-escalator step in, you know what, just no drama. Don't make a scene. Oh, that you hear a lot. That you hear a lot. Don't make a scene. I don't want the drama. That was the number one thing we all loved to hear. Don't make a scene and don't be dramatic. Women like me grew up hearing words from our parents, don't be dramatic. It is the number one, don't object to the abuse that you're suffering from. Don't be dramatic. No. Don't object to the abuse you're suffering from. Oh, they're trafficking you. Don't make a scene. Don't be dramatic. And when I was inside that trafficking ring and the pedophile ring, you could look out a window and see a man raping a child. It was that common where I was from. I called up my mother a few weeks ago and I said, Mom, do you know that we grew up in a pedophile community? No, we didn't, she said. And then I said, Mom, how many pedophiles were there? And she started listing off. Well, there were these people at church and these people at church. And then there were these people at the school bus. And then she got to the 10th, her second hand. She counted off another 5. And then she pulled out another. And she just kept going. I said, Mom, do you understand that that's not normal? And she had no idea. My mom was also raised in a pedophile community. And then when she was put into the foster care system, it was trafficked and she was moved and trafficked into Central New York, which is a pedophile community. It's so common that pedophiles know about Central New York. So when they release from prison, they go, you need to go to Central New York. They actually accommodate you and have a full ring for you to choose from. That's where I was born. And you've got people who are ignorant, completely unaware, who the abusers become educated about the ignorance of the community. And so they take advantage. And then they turn the ignorant into their helpers, whether or not you know it. Hey, you know what? You should really bring somebody over. Yeah, you should really bring someone over. You know what you should do? You should bring someone over. Getting outside was even worse because it's the same addiction rush that you get from an addiction. It is the exact same addictive rush. So when people are sitting there talking about things like Stockholm syndrome, I know better. I know that that's bullshit. That's an outsider trying to explain an insider mindset. But the outsiders are clueless. It's why I hate psychologists so much, is because I'm an insider. They're outsiders. And they're trying to diagnose what they think is a problem that they know nothing about because they were never on the inside. They studied a book and they thought they knew. Everything I ever learned about psychology, I learned from inside the field, firsthand experience. I had to reverse engineer it to get out of it, to figure out how they thought, how they worked, so I could get out. and then how to get it out of my own mind. It is 100% highly contagious inside the language. You stop using the language and it stops attracting those kinds of people. You change your language and they go away. In fact, you change your language and it repels them, because your language will communicate, and it does communicate to them, I'm not your victim. I'm going to say something and I'm going to say it loud. Oh, we don't want you around us. That's right, you don't. So when I changed the language, I pulled out my linguistic studies and I started to dissect the language they use. I was able to break down narcissist language, mental health language. I started to break down pedophile language and rape language. It's almost the exact same language. It's a variant. And when I started to put it all together, I realized, as I started to cross class systems, what the difference was between all the class systems. And the only difference between the class systems is the language. Once I started to understand that, I was able to step into a healthier area. And then I learned that language. I studied it, I documented it, and then I moved into the next one, and then the next one. I moved over 3 class systems. I started as a slave in trafficking, and then I moved into low poverty, and then I moved into middle class, and then I moved into high class. When I got to high class, that's when everything changed. Now, high class to an outsider looks like glamour and wealth, and that's not true. That's not true at all. You have to be an insider. The thing is, the majority of people who are high class, who had to get there, have been in low class and middle class, and in my case, slave class. So I got to see all the different class systems and how they're all different, which is knowledge that the low class don't have. It's knowledge that the slave class doesn't have. And it's knowledge that the shrinking middle class doesn't have. But it's knowledge that the high class do have, because the high class are the people who figured it out and got out. The majority of people in high class were not born there. We got there because we figured it out, which means we have knowledge that the rest of the world doesn't. And instead of learning from us, they want nothing to do with us. Meanwhile, instead of teaching others, the high class say, I don't want anything to do with it. And I don't blame them. I don't blame them. I'm almost there. I'm almost there where I want to close the door and say, I don't want anything to do with it, because it is that traumatic. That's why. They cut you out because they're traumatized, because they don't want to be reminded of what they had to go through to get out of it, because it's all in the language. And once you start to change the language, it allows you to separate yourself from it. And the moment you talk about it, it comes back to you. I can finally understand something that Morgan Freeman said. 20 years ago, I watched an interview with him and his thoughts on racism. And they asked him what he thought about the race wars and Black people. And Morgan Freeman said this: stop talking about it. Stop talking about it. Why are you talking about? Why are you calling me a Black man? Why am I not just a man? And I didn't understand, because I thought, well, if you want to solve a problem, you have to talk about the problem. This is wrong. If you want to solve a problem, you have to become educated about a problem. Talking about it does not educate you, not unless you know how. People don't know how. So as a result, what they talk about actually nourishes it and festers it, and it festers it. It's a completely different thing than being educated about it. So what Morgan Freeman was actually saying in that interview 20 years ago was, don't talk about it because you're gossiping. You're actually nourishing it. And it took me 20 years and 3 class systems to figure that out. Morgan Freeman is a very, very intelligent, educated man, but the words he used that day were not sufficient, because he needed to explain why. When you talk about something, you nourish it. Talking about something is not the same thing as being educated about it. What you're trying to do, what most people are trying to do when they talk about something, is they are trying to do trial and error, scientific method, and logical argument without any of the education to do those 3 things. I've mastered in those 3 things. Those things are my bread and butter. And I know how to do it effectively, to reverse engineer something and then use statistics and mathematics to apply the formulas so that I can form the education. But that's not talking. That's reverse engineering and studying. And we have mistaken talking for studying. Oh, why can't I say this word? Studying. So no, you shouldn't talk about it. You should not talk about it at all. Because what you're doing is gossiping and nourishing it, and you are breeding consumption. The other thing that I noticed was all the different pockets and groups of people and the different class systems. They all had a can't mentality. This is really interesting. Very, very fascinating. This is the difference between the high class, the successful, the wealthy, the abundant, the happy, and everybody else. Is this right here? Is you've got two mindsets. You have a can't mindset, and you have a I don't know or I need to learn mindset. This is really fascinating. The I need to learn mindset is never I can't. It's oh, I need to learn. And that's their default setting. Their default setting is I need to learn this. The can't mindset is default to I can't. And so they quit. And then they gossip about what they can't do. So it's I can't, I quit, they gossip. I can't, I quit, they gossip. I can't, I quit, they gossip. And that is what the everybody else does. But the abundant, wealthy, successful have the I need to learn this. And so they become educated and then they do. And that is their cycle. I don't know, learn, do. I don't know, learn, do. I don't know, learn, do. Everybody else, I can't, I quit, I gossip. I can't, I quit, I talk. Now, what they talk about or what they can't do, now that changes between the class systems. This is where it got really interesting. In the slave area, it's I can't do anything about anything. I can't change the way the world is. And so they quit and then they complain about it. If they're into politics, well, I can't change the way the world is. And then they quit trying and then they just talk about it. And what they talk about is going to determine what they can't do. And then you've got people who are, well, I can't do this because I'm white. I can't do this because I'm black. I can't do this because I'm a girl. So I quit and then I talk over and over again. I can't do this because I'm Latino. I can't do this because I'm poor. I can't do this because none of them can do anything because they're uneducated and they're not going, maybe I should learn. That's it. That is the only thing. That is the only divider between the people who are successful and everybody else. Everybody else is so ignorant, they don't know that the solution is to learn. And that's really it. That's really all it is. So ignorant, they don't even know they're ignorant and they need to learn. So ignorant and afraid, they don't even know that fear is the symptom of no knowledge. That is what the high class has figured out. That is what the successful people have figured out. That is what the high class people have figured out is, oh, I'm ignorant, thus I need to learn, and then I'm going to go do it. I can't do it. Well, no, you don't know how to do it. So you should learn how to do it. Well, I don't know how. Then you should learn how to learn. But they don't even do that. They're so ignorant, they don't even know that they're ignorant. And a lot of those people have degrees, and that's the delusion. They have the master's degrees. They're graduated from Harvard. They're graduated from MIT. And they're in the exact same boat as the people who are homeless going, I can't. Because they're so ignorant, they don't know that they're uneducated. Now, why this is important is because of all the abuse that I have suffered, no matter where I was or what I was doing, one thing over and over again kept abusing me, one common denominator. The common denominator of all abuse is ignorance. Nothing else. Ignorance. There were good people who abused me. There were bad people who abused me. There were toxic people who abused me. There were mentally ill, ignorant people who abused me. There were wealthy people who abused me. There were poor people who abused me. There were Christians who abused me. There were ethical people who abused me. There were kind people. The common denominator was ignorance. Either they were ignorant in how to handle their own emotions, they were ignorant on how to manage their own lives, or they were ignorant on how to handle their own addiction, or they were ignorant on how to not get themselves abused. They all were ignorant. I have never been abused by an educated person. I have never been abused by an educated person. Not ever. There's a right type of education and a wrong type. And we are not being educated in the right type of education. Not at all. When you have an ethical education, you don't hurt anyone because you know how. You know how not to. You know how to stop it. You know how to prevent it. You know how to maneuver it. And literally, no matter how much I learned, 30 plus years of philosophy, physics, math, that didn't keep me safe. As soon as I learned ethics, my life changed overnight. As soon as I learned ethical education, how I lived, what choices I made, my ability to articulate, all of it changed because it was finally the right kind of education. And that is not taught in this world, which is why the majority of us can't. Even if you have a degree from Harvard, you can't because you're not taught the right education. The majority of information that's out there is written by outsiders. And really, if I were to articulate my anger and my hatred, I don't feel like I have hatred. I feel like I just am angry sometimes. All of it is because I am an insider listening to a bunch of outsiders try and talk about something they know nothing about. And the outsiders claiming to be experts of an insider is just, it's offensive. It's so fucking offensive. I had this one woman, she was doctorate degree psychology. I posted something on LinkedIn and she came to me. She's like, do you really think that that's beneficial? And I said, I lived for 40 years a domesticated slave. These are my credentials. And I went down the abuse I suffered. I said, I am those people and I know what they need to hear. Did you study from a book as an outsider? Because I grew up on the inside. I know what they need to hear because I'm one of them. She shut her mouth and walked away. Because an insider can call bullshit on the outsiders claiming to be authorities. And I'm telling you right now, they're lying to you. They know fucking jack and shit about the world because they didn't grow up in a pedophile ring. They didn't grow up being trafficked. They didn't grow up in a community that nourishes it. Cults do not look like cults on the inside. They are mimics of what you think joy is. It's an oasis. It's a mirage of an oasis. It is a mirage of an oasis. That is what it looks like on the outside or on the inside. It's that feeling and that relief of, oh my God, I found water. And so you drink and you drink and you drink, not realizing you're drinking sand. And then these dipshits say you've got Stockholm syndrome and you're in love with your, no, I'm not in love with anybody. Trust me. Stockholm syndrome? I was never in love with anyone. I was surviving. I was doing whatever the fuck I had to do to survive. And if pretending to love that asshole got me through one more day, oh, I was going to pretend until I was blue in the face. But did I love him? No. Stockholm syndrome is not real. That is an outsider being stupid. There is no such thing as Stockholm syndrome. There's just survival. It's an oasis. It's a mirage of an oasis where you see everything you ever wanted and you're starving at the same time. That's it right there. You're starving. You're parched. You're insatiable because you're dying. But you're in the middle of an oasis. So you drink and you drink and you drink, and you don't understand why it's not working because you're caught in a mirage of an oasis. And when you see something that doesn't look right, the mirage makes it look like something different, but it feels. But then you've got all these other people inside the mirage telling you, oh no, and they see the same mirage. That's the danger of it. You see that painted vision of somebody inside a mirage desert alone. But what if there were 200 of you all seeing the same illusion? Now you start telling each other and gaslighting each other, oh yeah, that's the water. You drink from that water, it's okay. So you drink, and they're all drinking, so you're drinking. And inside you're going, this doesn't feel good. This doesn't feel right. Something feels off. Why don't I feel good? And then when you leave, you're going, I feel like shit. I feel terrible. Why do I feel terrible? It must be because I'm leaving. And right there it is. So you stay longer because you think, well, when I leave, I don't feel good. So that must be it. It's because you stepped out of the matrix for that oasis moment. And like I said, I'm on that cusp where I don't want to talk about it anymore. I want to close the door and just go and enjoy my life now. And I'm sitting here going, yeah, but people need to know about this. And there's not a lot of there's no outsiders. Insiders don't make it out. Insiders don't make it out. And when insiders do make it out, they don't have the ability to articulate it like I do. So I'm sitting here like caught between these worlds of, do I explain this and tell you about it? Do I educate you about it? When all I really want to do is close the door and just go live my life now and do what Morgan Freeman said is don't talk about it. But you got to know. Every psychologist who opens their stupid mouth is just an outsider trying to educate others on something they don't understand. They don't have a fucking clue. And when I tried to do what they said, that was really the breaking point in my therapy. That was it right there. I'm like, they've never been in a pedophile ring. They've never been enslaved. They don't know. They're outsiders trying to tell me how to live inside this nightmare, how to get out of it. They never got out of it. They're outsiders. What do they know about the inside? What the fuck can they possibly know? Did they go undercover? Cops will do that. Detectives will do that. I watched a 20-year documentary. This was a lot of help for my psychology work. It was it was on Hell's Angels. It was a documentary on Hell's Angels. And a detective had gone undercover and lived with them for 5 years so he could break up the gang. And he became their brother. He became part of it. And I watched the psychology. And then it got to that night and he's explaining how it all went down. They brought in 2 or 3 others and they all reported on what it was like going down. And the cop, the detective, was explaining what it was like, the betrayal he had to do to people he now considered his brothers. And I went, now that he gets me. Why am I comparing myself to a detective who's in disguise living in the inside of Hell's Angels? I had more understanding of that man than any psychologist. That dug me into a whole nother area of research where I started to understand it's because you got to be on the inside. You got to study the inside to understand how it works. And then you've got to study the way out. And then you've got to get out. And then when you get out, you've got to learn the language on the outside so you can even communicate this stuff. If psychologists had half a brain, they'd be knocking down my door going, we need your information. If psychologists had half a brain, they'd be like, oh my God, you're on the inside, you got out, and you've got all the data. They're that stupid. Typical for an outsider. There is a movie that was just released. Tony Robbins just gave it sang its praise. It's about a boy who gets involved in the trafficking world, who gets picked up and brought into it. I'm really terrified to watch it. And at the same time, I'm walking into this movie going, yeah, are they even going to get it right? I've talked to the parents who do this shit. I've talked to the predators who do this shit. I've talked to the children who've survived this shit. Outsiders are fucking clueless. And here's the kicker. You're probably an insider and you don't even know it. And that's really it, is you are an insider. Most likely, statistically, you're probably an insider and you don't know it. And that's the delusion. That's the real delusion. Almost everybody is an insider now. And you don't even know it. Thank you. May the kindest of words always find you.